It is zo 6 February 2026, and what just happened over North America is something scientists will question in the history books. Our weather is about to split into two completely different worlds, and what happens over the next 7 days is going to be extraordinary, no matter where you live in the United States. A massive heat wave is building west of the Rockies that's going to send temperatures soaring well above normal. But at the exact same time, two dangerous Arctic blasts are loading up in Canada and preparing to slam the central and eastern United States with bone-chilling cold and accumulating snow. This is the kind of dramatic pattern contrast that makes February such a wild month for weather. And what's coming this week is going to impact tens of millions of people. Once the Arctic blast arrives, the second blast over the weekend. And that's when temperatures could plummet by 50 degrees within 24 hours across parts of the Great Lakes and Northeast. We're talking about extreme, dangerous, life-threatening cold that demands serious preparation. By Monday morning, we could see temperatures as low as 25 below zero near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and across upstate New York. If this verifies, we're going to shatter records for daily high and low temperatures across multiple states. You see, in January 1985, America froze, the kind of cold that breaks records, shatters infrastructure, and becomes a generational memory. Meteorologists called it the ghost year. It was supposed to be a once-in-a-lifetime event. But right now, over North America, something is assembling that is making forecasters pull up those 40-year-old records and realize they might fall. This isn't a typical winter storm. It's what scientists are quietly calling a systemic atmospheric collapse. If this sounds like the kind of weather that changes everything, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, because what I'm about to break down will show you exactly when these two systems merge, where the worst impacts will be, and why this could be one of the most dangerous weather weeks of the entire winter. Let me break down exactly what you need to know as of this Friday, February 6, 2026. The engine driving this entire pattern is a massive ridge of high pressure building over the western United States. This ridge is going to pump abnormally warm temperatures across much of the central and western parts of the country over the next week. We're talking about temperatures running 20 to 30 degrees above normal in some locations. It's actually warmer in Alaska this morning than it is in Florida, which tells you everything you need to know about how unusual this pattern is. But that western ridge has consequences for the east. When you build a ridge that strong in the west, you create a trough in the east. And that eastern trough is going to be the highway for not one, but two Arctic blasts to come screaming out of Canada over the next several days. Let me explain what's happening in the upper atmosphere, because this is critical to understanding why this pattern is so extreme. The jet stream, that river of high-altitude wind that steers weather systems, is locked into what meteorologists call a highly amplified pattern. Instead of flowing in relatively smooth waves from west to east, it's developed extreme undulations. The ridge over the western United States is so strong that it's forcing the jet stream to bulge northward into Canada, and what goes up must come down. On the other side of that ridge, the jet stream plunges southward in a deep trough over the eastern United States. This configuration creates a direct pipeline from the Arctic to the lower 48 states, and when that pipeline opens, the cold doesn't trickle south. It floods. The first Arctic blast is already underway. A cold front is pushing through Texas right now and will eventually reach the Northeast by Thursday. This isn't the main event, but it's going to drive temperatures down by 10 to 30 degrees depending on where you are. The further south and west you go, the less intense this will be. Texas and Oklahoma will only drop by a few degrees, but the Northeast and Ohio Valley are going to feel this one significantly. But here's what you need to understand. This first blast is just setting the stage. It's pre-cooling the atmosphere. It's establishing a baseline of cold air that the second blast will build upon. And that second blast, the one arriving Friday and Saturday, is the one that has me most concerned. The second Arctic blast is the one that has me most concerned. This surge of Arctic air hits Friday and Saturday, and it's going to be intense. A large low-pressure system is going to develop just north of the Great Lakes. And on the backside of that low, we're going to see temperatures plummet by as much as 50 degrees within 24 hours across parts of the Great Lakes and Northeast. Let me repeat that. 50 degrees in 24 hours. That's not a typo. That's not an exaggeration. That's what the models are showing. This is extreme, dangerous, life-threatening cold that demands serious preparation. By Monday morning, we could see temperatures as low as 25 below zero near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and across upstate New York. If this verifies, we're going to shatter records for daily high and low temperatures across multiple states. The cold air is going to linger through at least the middle of next week before any moderation arrives. Now let me talk about the snow, because multiple systems are going to impact the country over the next several days. And this is where things get complicated, because we're not dealing with one storm. We're dealing with a parade of systems, each one adding to what's already on the ground. Today, Wednesday, we already have a low pressure system developing over the mid-Mississippi Valley. On the north side of that, low snow showers are developing across the Ohio Valley. This isn't a major event, but it's the first of several waves of snow this week. Tonight, heavier snow moves towards Cincinnati, just south of Columbus and near Evansville, Indiana. That snow will spread into West Virginia and Virginia overnight. We're looking at 1 to 3 inches possible in the most favored areas. It's not a blockbuster, but it's enough to create travel problems on roads that are already compromised from existing snow cover. Thursday morning, snow showers linger across the Carolinas and Virginia. This low-pressure system is going to be slow-moving, so if you're in North Carolina or Virginia, keep an eye on the sky for additional accumulation on top of the foot-plus of snow many areas received this past weekend. Another inch or two is possible through late tomorrow night. Thursday afternoon into evening, the storm system moves offshore. Some snow showers will be possible across New England as it exits. And then Friday arrives. And Friday is when the main event begins. Friday is when the main event arrives. An Alberta clipper is going to dive out of Canada and bring a much more significant snow threat to the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, and eventually the Northeast. This is going to be an intense low-pressure system with a lot of energy behind it. Friday morning, expect heavier snow across Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan. Snow squalls are possible in some areas, which means rapidly reducing visibility with heavy snowfall rates. Indianapolis, Columbus, and the Cleveland area need to be prepared for significant impacts Friday morning. Travel could become dangerous very quickly as these squalls move through. Friday afternoon, the snow spreads as far south as North Carolina and Virginia. By this point, accumulations will be lighter in the southern areas, but any additional snow on top of what's already there creates compounding problems. Friday night into Saturday, snow continues to linger across the Northeast. But here's where it gets really concerning. On the backside of that low-pressure system, we're going to see very intense winds develop, with over a foot of snow already on the ground across most of the Northeast. Those winds are going to create blizzard conditions, blowing and drifting snow, near zero visibility, and dangerous travel conditions are likely across a wide area. This system is going to be close to being a nor'easter based on how close the low-pressure center tracks to New England. However, current data suggests the low won't be close enough to continue dumping heavy snow on New England through Sunday. The bigger threat will be the wind and the extreme cold arriving behind the system. Let me explain what a snow squall actually is, because this term gets thrown around, but many people don't understand how dangerous they are. A snow squall is an intense, short-lived burst of heavy snow accompanied by strong winds. Visibility can drop from clear to near zero in a matter of minutes. These are the conditions that cause massive pileups on highways. Drivers are traveling at normal speeds in clear conditions, and suddenly they're in a whiteout. They can't see the car in front of them. They can't see the road, and by the time they realize they need to slow down, it's too late. Snow squalls are responsible for some of the deadliest winter weather accidents, and Friday morning, as that Alberta clipper moves through, conditions are going to be perfect for multiple squalls to develop across the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley. If you absolutely must travel Friday morning, you need to be prepared for conditions to deteriorate rapidly. Have emergency supplies in your car, keep your gas tank full, and if you encounter a squall, slow down immediately and consider pulling off the road until it passes. Let me give you the regional breakdown with specific totals and impacts, because where you live determines what you're going to experience. For the Ohio Valley, today through tonight brings 1 to 3 inches from Cincinnati through Columbus down to Evansville. Friday's system brings another round with snow squalls possible. Total accumulation through the weekend could reach 3 to 6 inches in the most favored spots. The combination of snow and extreme cold will make travel treacherous. For Indiana, Indianapolis is in the crosshairs Friday morning for heavier snow and potential snow squalls. Fort Wayne and South Bend will see accumulation as well. Expect 2 to 4 inches from Friday's system, with locally higher amounts where squalls set up. For Ohio, Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, Toledo, and Dayton all see snow today and again Friday. Columbus could be particularly impacted with both systems. Total accumulation through the weekend could reach 3 to 5 inches across much of the state. Snow squalls. Friday morning could briefly drop visibility to near zero. For Michigan, the lower peninsula from Detroit through Grand Rapids and Lansing sees snow with Friday's system. The upper peninsula will see lake effect contributions. Total accumulation 2 to 4 inches, with locally higher amounts near the lakes. For West Virginia, Charleston, Morgantown, Wheeling, and the mountain counties see snow tonight and again with Friday's system. The higher elevations could see enhanced totals. Expect 2 to 5 inches through the weekend, with the mountains seeing the higher end. For Virginia, Richmond, Norfolk, and the Tidewater region, see light snow tonight and again Friday afternoon. Northern Virginia and the DC suburbs could see 1 to 2 inches from tonight's system, with another inch or two Friday. The mountains in Western Virginia could see 3 to 5 inches. For Washington, D.C. and Maryland, light accumulation tonight with another round Friday. The Baltimore-Washington corridor could see 2 to 4 inches total through the weekend. Ocean City and the Eastern Shore may see slightly higher amounts. For North Carolina, the Carolinas just got buried with over a foot of snow this past weekend. And now more is coming. Light snow lingers Thursday morning. Friday afternoon brings another wave. Charlotte, Raleigh, and Winston-Salem could see another 1 to 3 inches on top of what's already there. This is going to extend the duration of snow-covered roads and difficult travel conditions. For the Northeast, this is where the combination of snow and wind creates the most dangerous conditions. Upstate New York and northern New England could easily pick up close to a foot of snow with Friday's system. Boston, Hartford, Providence, and Portland will see accumulation. But the bigger story is the potential for blizzard conditions Friday night into Saturday, as winds increase on the backside of the departing low. With all that snow already on the ground, visibility could drop to near zero at times. For New England specifically, the weekend is going to be brutal. Not only do you have blizzard potential Saturday, but the Arctic air arriving behind the system is going to send temperatures plummeting. Wind chills across New England could drop to 30 to 40 below zero. Some areas in northern New England could see wind chills approaching 50 below. This is life-threatening cold that demands serious respect. For Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh is in a particularly vulnerable spot. Monday morning could see temperatures as low as 25 degrees below zero. Combined with snow accumulation through the weekend, this is going to be one of the coldest periods Pittsburgh has seen in years. Philadelphia sees snow Friday and dangerous cold this weekend. For New York City, snow Friday with accumulation possible. The bigger threat is the wind this weekend, creating blizzard conditions with the existing snow cover. Temperatures Sunday and Monday will be dangerously cold. Let me put these wind chill values in perspective, because numbers on a screen don't convey the actual danger. At wind chills of 30 below zero, exposed skin can freeze in less than 10 minutes. At 40 below, it's less than 5 minutes. At 50 below, frostbite can occur in under 2 minutes. This is not the kind of cold where you can run outside to your car without a coat. This is not the kind of cold where you can wait for the bus without proper protection. This is the kind of cold that kills. Hypothermia sets in quickly. Your body loses heat faster than it can produce it. Your core temperature drops. You become confused, disoriented. Your judgment becomes impaired. And if you're not rescued quickly, you die. Every winter, people die from exposure to extreme cold. They get stranded in their cars. They try to walk for help and don't make it. They underestimate how dangerous the conditions are. Don't be one of those people. If you live in the affected areas, you need to take this seriously. Have backup heat sources. Know how to use them safely. Check on vulnerable neighbors. And if you absolutely must go outside, dress in layers, cover all exposed skin, and limit your time outdoors. Now let me talk about what comes after this brutal weekend, because the pattern is going to shift dramatically. By early next week, while the Northeast remains locked in the deep freeze, warmth starts building across the southern plains and into Florida. This is the beginning of a significant pattern change that's going to bring relief to much of the country by the second week of February. The middle of February looks notably warmer for most areas. That big western ridge is going to expand eastward, bringing above average temperatures to a large portion of the country. For those who are tired of winter, this is good news. But here's the thing. For winter weather lovers, this warm-up isn't necessarily bad news either. What this pattern allows for is the polar vortex to reorganize and potentially unleash again around the middle to end of February. When you get significant warming followed by another Arctic outbreak, that's when you set up the potential for big winter storms. Late Sunday into early Monday, we're already seeing hints of another snow disturbance potentially impacting the Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic. This one could spread snow as far south as Tennessee, maybe even into North and South Carolina, perhaps Georgia. It's still 5 to 6 days out, so confidence is low, but it shows the pattern remains active. By the 3rd and 4th week of February, things could get very interesting again. The models are suggesting that after the mid-February warm-up, cold air reloads and makes another push southward. That's when we could see some truly significant winter storms develop as the warm and cold air masses clash. February 2026 is shaping up to be a month of extremes. We're going to see some of the coldest temperatures of the entire winter this weekend. We're going to see a dramatic warm-up by mid-month, and then potentially more cold and snow opportunities by late month. The roller coaster ride isn't over by any means. Let me explain why this pattern evolution is so significant. When you have a prolonged period of extreme cold followed by a rapid warm-up, you're setting up what meteorologists call a baroclinic zone. That's a fancy term for a region where there's a sharp temperature gradient, and sharp temperature gradients are where storms develop. The atmosphere doesn't like imbalances. When you have warm air on one side and cold air on the other, the atmosphere tries to mix them, and that mixing process is what creates storms. The bigger the temperature difference, the more energy available for storm development. And after the extreme cold of this weekend, followed by the warmth of mid-February, that temperature gradient is going to be enormous. That's why late February could see some truly significant winter storms. The ingredients will be there. The question is just where the storms develop and who gets impacted. For those currently dealing with power outages from the previous storms, this week is going to be extremely difficult. The cold isn't letting up, and Friday's system, followed by the Arctic blast, creates a dangerous situation for anyone without heat. Please check on elderly neighbors and anyone you know who might be struggling. So here's the bottom line for the next 7 days. Today and tonight, bring light snow to the Ohio Valley, spreading into West Virginia, and eventually the Carolinas with 1 to 3 inch accumulations. Thursday sees lingering snow in the Carolinas and Virginia. Friday brings a more significant Alberta clipper with snow squalls possible from Indiana through Ohio and into the Northeast. Accumulations of several inches widespread with up to a foot in upstate New York and northern New England. Friday night into Saturday brings blizzard conditions possible across the Northeast with high winds and existing snow cover. Saturday and Sunday feature extreme Arctic cold with wind chills 30 to 50 below zero across the Great Lakes and Northeast. Monday could bring record-breaking cold to Pennsylvania and upstate New York with temperatures 25 below zero possible. Mid-February brings a significant warm-up. Late February potentially reloads with more cold and snow opportunities. This is going to be a week to remember. Stay warm, stay safe, and take this seriously. The cold arriving this weekend is dangerous and life-threatening. Prepare now while you still can. Let me be very specific about what preparation means, because general advice doesn't help when you're facing life-threatening conditions. First, food and water. You need at least a week's worth of non-perishable food and water, not because you're going to be snowed in for a week, but because if you lose power, you need supplies that don't require refrigeration or cooking. Second, heat. If you lose power, how will you stay warm? Space heaters require electricity. If you have a fireplace or wood stove, stock up on wood now. If you have a generator, make sure it's working and you have fuel. And never ever run a generator indoors or in an attached garage. Carbon monoxide kills. Third, medications. If you or anyone in your household takes daily medications, make sure you have at least a 2-week supply. Pharmacies may be closed. Roads may be impassable. You can't afford to run out. Fourth, communication. Make sure you have a way to receive weather alerts, a battery-powered radio, a charged phone, a way to know if conditions are deteriorating. Fifth, your vehicle. Keep your gas tank at least half full. Have an emergency kit in your car: blankets, water, snacks, flashlight, first aid kit. If you get stranded, these supplies could save your life. And sixth, check on others: elderly neighbors, people living alone, anyone who might be vulnerable. A simple phone call or knock on the door could make the difference between someone weathering the storm safely and someone facing a life-threatening situation. Now, let me tell you about the merger that's happening that nobody in the mainstream media is discussing. Because while everyone is focused on the individual storms, the real story is what happens when these systems interact. The first Arctic blast arriving today is establishing a baseline of cold air across the eastern United States. That cold air is dense, it's heavy, it settles into valleys and low-lying areas, and it doesn't move easily. When Friday's Alberta Clipper arrives, it's not moving into a neutral atmosphere. It's moving into an atmosphere that's already been pre-cooled by the first blast, and that changes everything. The temperature gradient between the Arctic air and the relatively warmer air to the south becomes sharper. The instability increases, and the potential for explosive storm development grows. This is the merger. Not a physical collision of two storm systems, but an atmospheric setup where one system prepares the environment for the next system to become more intense than it would have been on its own. And the result is what we're going to see Friday and Saturday. A storm that produces heavy snow, dangerous winds, and blizzard conditions across a huge swath of the country, followed immediately by Arctic air so cold that it shatters records. This is the 1-2 punch that makes this week so dangerous. The snow creates travel hazards and buries infrastructure. And then the cold arrives before anyone has a chance to recover, creating a secondary set of hazards that compounds the first. Power lines that were damaged by snow and ice now have to contend with extreme cold that makes repairs difficult. Roads that were cleared now have to deal with blowing snow that reduces visibility to zero. People who were already exhausted from dealing with the first storm now have to deal with the second. This is how winter weather becomes catastrophic. Not from a single event, but from a series of events that don't allow time for recovery in between. Let me give you some historical context because what we're about to experience has precedent. And understanding that precedent helps you understand why meteorologists are so concerned. In January 1977, a similar pattern developed: a massive ridge over the western United States, a deep trough over the east, multiple Arctic blasts in rapid succession, and temperatures that plummeted to record lows across the Great Lakes and Northeast. Buffalo, New York, saw temperatures drop to 20 below zero. Wind chills reached 60 below. The city was paralyzed for days. Natural gas shortages developed. Schools closed for weeks. People died. In February 1899, another extreme cold outbreak shattered records across the eastern United States. Temperatures dropped below zero as far south as Florida. The Mississippi River froze, citrus crops were destroyed, and the cold persisted for over a week. These are the historical analogs for what we're facing this weekend. Not exact matches, but similar patterns that produce similar outcomes. Extreme cold, dangerous conditions, widespread impacts. The difference is that in 1977 and 1899, forecasting capabilities were limited. People didn't have days of advance warning. They couldn't prepare the way we can now. We have that advantage. We know what's coming. We know when it's coming, and we know how dangerous it's going to be. The question is whether we'll use that knowledge to prepare, or whether we'll ignore the warnings and hope for the best. History shows us what happens when communities are unprepared for extreme cold. Infrastructure fails, people suffer, and some people die. We have the opportunity to avoid repeating that history, but only if we take the threat seriously. As we close, I want you to understand that this week is going to define winter 2026, not because it's the only significant weather we've seen. We've already had major storms. We've already dealt with extreme cold, but this week is different because of the intensity, the duration, and the geographic scope. This is not a regional event. This is a continental scale pattern that's going to impact tens of millions of people simultaneously. The first Arctic blast is already here. The second arrives Friday, and the cold that follows is going to be record-breaking. This is the kind of week that people remember, that gets written about in weather history books, that becomes the benchmark for future winters. Remember the winter of 2026? People will say. Remember that week in February when it got so cold? This is that week. This is the moment when winter shows us what it's really capable of. When the atmosphere demonstrates that despite all our technology and infrastructure, we're still vulnerable to the forces of nature. But vulnerability doesn't mean helplessness. We can prepare. We can protect ourselves and our families. We can help our neighbors. And we can get through this. The snow is coming. The cold is coming. The blizzard conditions are coming. But if you're prepared, if you take this seriously, if you follow the guidance from meteorologists and emergency managers, you can weather this storm. Stay warm, stay safe, stay informed, and most importantly, stay prepared. Because the next 7 days are going to test every community in the eastern United States. The merger of these two Arctic blasts is going to create conditions we haven't seen in years. But we've been through extreme weather before. We've survived worse, and we'll survive this too. As long as we respect the danger, prepare accordingly, and look out for each other. The countdown has begun. The first blast is here. The second arrives Friday, and by Monday morning, we'll know whether we were ready for what winter 2026 had to throw at us. This is the monster storm. This is the Arctic collision. This is the week that will shatter records and test our resilience, and it starts right now.